Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted. I'm the Rector of Politecnico di Milano, for those who don't know. I'm very happy to welcome here a very special guest, Andrew Bosworth, which is the Chief Technology Officer at Meta. And I thank him for his precious time. I know it's very constrained when he's visiting to be with us at Politecnico di Milano. Andrew Bosworth doesn't need any presentation. However, he graduated from Harvard University. He has a 20-year old career in technology and digital technology, let's say, which is also my field of competence. He's more entitled than everyone here in this room to speak about augmented and real and virtual reality, about the metaverse and artificial intelligence. We are eager to know more and to take advantage not only of his knowledge, but mostly also from his privileged and trailblazing perspective. I thank Professor Noci for providing this opportunity and to bring here Andrew. As you know, digital technology is embedded in our life, but what is more important, I think, as a technical university for us is to take into account not only the technology per se, which is very interesting, but also the impact of technology on society and human beings, something that Meta is working on for a long time. And I hope that this chat also will give us some perspective on the principal policies that Meta has in his house. Politecnico di Milano is also trying to deal and to reason about the impact of AI in particular, and how this the way we can use it as an opportunity for us and for our students to augment the possibility of our work and personal life. But we know that there are also issues, in particular with generative AI, which is changing the understanding, the perception of reality, and sometimes our behavior, and some parts of our jobs probably in the future. Being technology officer at Meta, it is a great responsibility, and I hope you can exchange some of your views with us. What's more, our duty as an educational institution is to take care of our new generation, and students here represent a sample of it. We have 48,000 students, so it's just a very small sample. We want to educate our students to be future leaders, but also citizens. And one of the risks of algorithms, especially with respect to young people, is that the data logic, which is inherently different from human reasoning. A logic that tends to propose sometimes a one-side vision, to reiterate it's our own mind, to strengthen our preconception rather than amplifying our vision. And I think this is the challenge for all those who work in computer science, to make sure that digital technology opens the mind and doesn't close them. And I would like also to thank the Minister of Enterprise and Made in Italy for the letter he sent to us. It's in Italian, but I'm sure that the Chief of Staff that will speak later will provide the insights and the contents of the letter. I now leave the floor to Professor Noci to chair this meeting and lead the conversation, and I'm sure it will be a very fruitful one for our students and staff, but also for our special guests, and I'm here to listen. Thank you very much.
Microfoni dove sono? Qui. So, it's really a great pleasure to have such a chance to have Andrew Bosworth. Please, an applause to him. Well, this is the Italian community coming from the engineering field and the design field. So it's a tremendous opportunity for us to have the chance to have some chat with you, And so thank you very much for being here. Please sit, Andrew. So, our rector has spoken about AI, and of course AI is a very hot topic. So our first question is, how do you see AI can positively impact both the business and the society? This is, I guess, a crucial topic, and having some thoughts from you is of fundamental importance. Please, Andrew.
Yeah, the explosion in interest in artificial intelligence over the last year is often centered around these chatbots, chat agents, even Meta, right? 3 weeks ago at Facebook Connect, Meta Connect, we announced our own agents. And that's very exciting because you're interacting with a machine in a way that feels very natural, and you can find surprising results through creativity, whether it be in generating art, poems, music, things that we previously thought were the exclusive domain of humans. And I think I quite enjoy using them as well. But it's worth noting, I do not think that will be the largest impact in the world of large language models. I think the largest impact in the world will be not these vertical integrations where we as people are interacting directly with the AI. That's very cool and it will continue to be an important thing. But actually, almost every aspect of our lives would be improved if the services, the systems that we were using were themselves deploying these types of artificial intelligences behind the scenes. You're not interacting with an AI, but an AI has improved the scheduling for buses, the tools that you're getting access to in healthcare, the analyses that your doctors have available to them. These are things where you're not directly interacting with an artificial intelligence, but an artificial intelligence is making your life better. And so we really do believe there's a fundamental power here. But I want to call out, one of my favorite examples here is to think about in when IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov at chess. We didn't stop playing chess. In fact, chess is globally more popular now than it was before humans lost to artificial intelligence. And not only that, chess masters study artificial intelligence to learn new strategies for playing chess against one another. And so the history of humanity, when presented with a new tool, is an explosion of creativity that the ends of which we don't know. One of my favorite statistics, it's an American statistic, forgive me, is that of the jobs that people have in 2018, 60% of those jobs did not exist 60 years earlier. Those jobs that people have, more than half of people have jobs that weren't even a job you could have in their grandparents' generation. And that is the march of technological progress. So there's tremendous risk in coding these tools, as the rector pointed out. We have tremendous work to do to mitigate those risks. No, man, yep. Okay. Technology is hard. And so we have tremendous risks. Thank you, sir. We have tremendous risks to mitigate with these technologies, but and we are constantly forced to reevaluate our own self as a reflection of this technology. If we thought art or music were the explicit domain of humans before, we now know better. That doesn't mean that we stop doing art and music. In fact, it forces us to evaluate what is our relationship to art and music. What is the uniquely human aspect of fashion, of design, of interactivity, of communication, of relationships? And so for us at least, I think artificial intelligence, we are at the very, very early stages of a very profoundly important technological shift. Quite a bit of that value will not be created in full view of the public. It won't be something that you're using on your phone. It will be something that is behind the scenes. But of course, it will also change the way we interact with the digital world, our digital devices in a profound way, and probably in a shorter time period than we think.
Thank you, Andrew. We've changed the microphone with human support. So, the issue, I think that a great debate is going on, at least in Europe, but not only in Europe, about the governance of AI. We've spoken last week in a governmental event of AI Act and so far. So in your opinion, how could be structured a solid and transparent governance framework for such a tremendous challenge like AI?
Yeah, so I have spent a lot of time on this question with European regulators, with regulators in the UK, with regulators in the United States, with regulators in Asia. It's a truly challenging question. Very often, I think our instincts are to embrace the status quo, which feels safer than the unknown on the other side of a novel invention, especially one with the potential power that artificial intelligence has. I will dismiss out of hand, I think it's important to recognize, large language models are not artificial general intelligence. They are not going to become artificial intelligence. They're not even really on the path to artificial general intelligence. That's an entirely different field of study, an important one that is ongoing, and that our fundamental AI research group that I lead is pursuing under a vision set by Jan LeCun called the Artificial Machine Intelligence. So, existential threat to humanity, I don't consider a serious critique of artificial intelligence that we have or are likely to have in the very near future. But that doesn't mean that there aren't significant concerns. Some of those concerns are quite unique. Biosecurity, cybersecurity, areas where institutions such as this already possess the knowledge, people in this room already possess the knowledge gotten freely at a public university to potentially do tremendous harm to society. And what the internet does, what knowledge bases like large language models do, is take that knowledge, painstakingly gained by all of you, and make it more readily accessible to a much broader base of people. Now, in some cases, I think these threats are not so novel. Cyber attacks, for example, you have nation-state actors, North Korea, China, and others, who have much the same knowledge that you do, and every bit the incentive, both economic and political, to weaponize that knowledge. And so for areas like cybersecurity, I think we already are at a state where for critical infrastructure, we have to defend them, assuming incredibly sophisticated attackers. In the case of biological hazards, I do think we have opportunities for governments to put in place much stronger regulations around access to some of the raw materials and equipment required to operate a wet lab that could create a pathogen and release those pathogens. I think we have been a little casual about some of those threats. And I do think AI is an antagonist. It is a reason for us to look with great scrutiny in those areas, as we did with nuclear power 80 years ago, in the formation of tremendous international standards of how we approach both information and materials relating to the development of nuclear weapons or capabilities. There's a second set of problems which are, frankly, much harder for me to feel confident in legislation around them. What should our stance be on the ability of free people to use a tool available to them to generate and share information, even false information? Should we take people who believe the earth is flat and put them in prison? Should they not be allowed to say things that are wrong? Do we even know what wrong is? Because it was a point when thinking the world wasn't flat was wrong. But for an Italian, as I understand it. So I think there is a tremendous risk as a society of free people, of democratic people, to embrace these fundamental arrogance that we know what is truth, that we know what is right, that we can tell the difference between satire and serious. And I'm wary of giving governments anywhere license to limit speech of democratic people. Artificial intelligence will once again be an antagonist. It creates a tool to scale up information attacks at a level never before seen. We've all heard about governments, repressive governments, sponsoring rooms full of people to create misinformation or propaganda. I suspect everyone here already knows, our own governments do the same things. Famously sometimes, propaganda was a tremendous feature of every war that we've ever seen. And we see it playing out even today as propaganda spins up to reframe and contextualize current conflicts. So what then is our responsibility at the tool level to do something versus at the consequence level? I think we can do a great job as a society regulating consequences, but I think we struggle a little bit when we try to regulate tools. Surely a hammer has been used to do physical harm to somebody that is not, generally speaking, cause to ban the hammer. And so I think we have to approach artificial intelligence very cautiously in regulation, and not because I absolutely believe democratic governments should have the ability to regulate the societies that they have been duly elected to protect, but because we don't even know yet what this is. And to be too aggressive on it risks tremendous economic ruin, I think, for those countries that get too far ahead of the curve.
Well, thank you. I guess that there is also an issue that is pretty important to address is how to preserve, what is the relationship between property rights associated to information and the information that is used for training So what's your opinion about this? Because it's a very hot topic, especially in democracies.
Of course. So it's a very good challenge. And by the way, this is not entirely novel to artificial intelligence. Music for a long time has been a genre, especially for modern forms of music, electronic music, for hip hop, for rap, where people are not just inspired by other musicians, they actually take parts of those songs and replay them. And it's been a constant challenge for courts around the world to understand when is something theft, when is it inspiration, when is it appropriate, when has it been sufficiently modified to count as something new. This is an area where I really do encourage governments around the world to take seriously an opportunity to clarify what is fair use. All of us in this room stand on the backs of every intellectual who came before us, right? All of us take the knowledge provided by our ancestors and build upon it just the littlest bit, just the tiniest fraction. The majority of the output was not created by us. It was created by people who came before us, and we took that knowledge and synthesized it and created something new. And we know what that feels like. And when we use a tool to do that, I'm fine with that. And I think we all should be. But I certainly understand the concern that people who own intellectual property have, that their rights are being undermined by virtue of making it so much easier to take those inspiration. So it's an area where we seek clarity, first and foremost. I think that it's probably workable to build these models in any scenario. Now keep in mind, the more you protect the intellectual property, the more a smaller number of companies will have the data sets required to build the technology in the end. The more permissive the intellectual property rights, the more anybody is able to go build these models. And so, as is so often the case, we're forced to make a challenging decision when we consider regulation. The more regulation you put in place, the more expensive it is to comply, the smaller number of people, institutions on the planet capable of complying, they now have capture. They now own it. They've been granted a regulatory moat. And so these are tremendously challenging decisions for regulators to consider when they look at these things.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, we have spoken about AI. You have been very well known for several things, but a couple of years ago, the discussion around the metaverse and immersive technology represented a significant discontinuity. Well, what I would like to ask you now is how AI and immersive technology can be integrated in order to have a better experience for the market. What are the key challenges that we have to deal with?
Yeah, I tell you truly, if you had asked me 2 years ago, my biggest concern about our ability to deliver the metaverse as a comprehensive vision of a blending of digital and physical realities, whether delivered through virtual reality, mixed reality, or augmented reality, as hard as the fundamental technology is to build, as hard as it is to build tiny, bright displays that run all day inside of the form factor of a pair of glasses. Very, very hard problem. As hard of a problem as exists in engineering. As hard as it is to think about the need we have for neural interfaces that understand what you're thinking so that you can interact with the machine when you have no keyboard, no mouse, no touch screen. Very, very hard problem in physiology, in machine learning, in hardware again. Those are hard problems. Those were nothing compared to the concern I had that we would not have sufficiently sophisticated artificial intelligence. Because when you are going about your day, you cannot have a computer system running on your face that you are constantly having to manage or maintain. It would be an unworkable product. If you were constantly having to manage and dismiss and summon the right information as you moved through the world, it would be a terrible experience. Artificial intelligence of the kind we've seen emerge in the last year holds the promise to the solution for this problem, because we have the chance to have a human-style understanding of context of what is happening right now. Today, right now, I am giving a speech to all of you. It would be profoundly inappropriate for a bunch of messages to be scrolling in front of my face and for me to have to do anything to dismiss those messages. Ideally, with proper sensors, a camera and a microphone, the proper contextual understanding of the world, my phone, or whatever's powering the display, would have the good sense to minimize all of those things so I could engage with my audience. Now, if it turns out that there's a tremendous emergency, one of my children has fallen ill, needs my immediate attention, it should also know that would be an appropriate thing, that I would, even to a room of hundreds of people, to an audience on the internet, which I'm told is very big, I don't know, would still say, excuse me, I have to take this. So contextual understanding not only of the physical world, but also of the content of the digital world. And we did not even have a vision to what that would look like a year or two ago. Now again, we've been doing the fundamental research in AI for over 10 years in Meta. In fact, if you look at the 3 major technological breakthroughs that were needed to get to large language models, they were driven by 3 companies: Meta with self-supervised learning, Google with a transformer, and OpenAI with RLHF. So we've been doing this fundamental technology, but this is where I do think it's such an inspiring message, especially for students. There's so many research problems. It was research. So we were doing the work in the path towards a solution, but even knowing all that we had, having Turing Award winners working for us, we did not know it would come when it did. And so you do have to just set your mind on a problem, invest over a long period of time with the fundamental belief that that problem is important, is worth solving, and then sometimes it takes longer and sometimes you're surprised. In this case, artificial intelligence is the critical missing piece for these interfaces to be workable, for this to even be a technology people are willing and able to engage in. So we're very excited about it.
So thank you, Andrew. An applause to him, please. Now there's time for a Q&A. So we hope that some students can have a question to Andrea. Of course, we have microphones around, I guess, yeah? Please, you can use the microphone on the table, yeah? It's much easier.
Press the button.
Push the button.
Hello?
Oh.
Oh my. No. Yeah, there is also the online part, so you need to use the microphone.
So you can use one of the ones. Use that one.
No, please.
Hello. Sorry for my problem. I'm calling from the career community. So we are studying for the AI, but with the concept of the creativity. So I want to ask if we could understand AI from the creator point of view or the designer point of view, if the AI has the creativity or it's just a tool, not a kind of life. Thank you.
So you're approaching AI from the perspective of the creative community, and you're asking if AI has its own point of view. Sorry, could you the last part of the question?
Is it just a kind of a new tool, or is another kind of life? So it has a creativity.
It's definitely a new tool. I'm so loud, but we need to get the digital. Just keep doing this. We're just going to keep rotating. This is the system that's working. So right now, it is a tool. When you aren't using the AI, it does nothing. It has no... I stand? Should I sit? What do I do? It has no concept of self. It has no intentionality. It has no inner dialogue, inner monologue, rich inner life. It is a tool for creativity. Truly, the analogy I would give is it is the first time we've been able to get something similar to the human associative memory. So previously with computers, you had a database, you put information in, you index it, but it stays where it is. And what's a fascinating property of humans, and language in particular, and I think the reason these are built around language, is our ability to be associative. So if I said to you, a pink-spotted triceratops dinosaur, you can immediately envision that. That's insane. You've never seen one. That is the ability that we have to map these fundamental concepts through the combinatoric capability of language and arrive at a surprisingly, across this whole set of people, similar output. Separately, we have another very cool ability, which is if I said to somebody, and this usually works with alcohol, so if I said to somebody, tequila, they will have a memory that summons for them, usually not a good one. And that's a tremendous ability to take a word and map it to many, many concepts. Historically speaking, computers have been very bad at this because we've had to manually tune those databases to create structure. Large language models are the first time we've created an associative database where each word contains within it a probability distribution of the words around it for some token size or some context window. And it's very cool, but it is a database. In fact, it's not even an online database. It's not even a learning database. Once you build the pre-trained model, it's a block of marble. You can't edit it. You can put some clever things on top of it, but it's done. So there's nothing alive here. My favorite book on consciousness is the book I Am a Strange Loop by Douglas Hofstadter. Douglas Hofstadter, who also wrote Gödel, Escher, Bach, is a tremendously talented author, mathematician, and I really do find that ongoing self-reference and revision based on environmental cues does seem like a kernel of consciousness. And as I've said before, large language models, they may serve a role in the future of consciousness in the way that our associative memories serve for us, but it's worth noting I do believe there are many things that exist, have some level of consciousness that don't have associative memory on this planet. So I don't think it's the key piece or the critical piece or even a necessary piece, nor do I think it's the hard piece of getting these things to be sentient.
Facciamo prima lui.
Scelga lei, vada lei.
Sceglierò io.
Okay, so I've got two questions. One is not very inherent to AI, so I don't know if you can answer. The first one is, you said that you went to Harvard, and I wanted to know, being the CTO of Meta, how much did you had to learn on the spot? And I mean, if Harvard was only like a teacher of teaching, or you had enough knowledge. And the second question was, how did you manage to get to become a CTO of Meta? What was your...
Yeah, well, I'll answer them in reverse order. I managed to become the CTO of Meta because Mark forced me to. It's a true story. When he asked me, when Mike Schrepfer, who was a previous CTO and a dear friend, stepped down, Mark asked me if I would be CTO, and I said, please no. I'm perfectly content just doing this. Find somebody who really values it. And he said, no, you have to do it. So that's how I became CTO. So when I was an undergraduate, I was quite keen to hear of the Politecnico approach. I really valued the education I got on computer science. And in fact, I studied interdisciplinary at Harvard, a program called computational neurobiology. So I took quite a bit of neurobiology, but primarily in computer science. And I tremendously value it. And in fact, what's interesting is I certainly would not have had the technical skills to get a job if I hadn't done that. But also what I do find is very often the courses that I reference the most in my work, and perhaps you get a sense of it here in my answers, were courses that had nothing to do with computer science or neurobiology, but were paying attention to the historical context, history, literature, art, those pieces of society that technology hopes to interface with, like hopes to affect, hopes to create value for. And so I really did quite value that. At the same time, I would say the bulk of my education has been in industry. The bulk of my education has been, and I was very lucky to join then Facebook very early on when I was quite junior, but so was the whole company. And I grew up very much with the company. And I grew up with the internet and then the mobile era, and I was able to be at the forefront, and I feel very fortunate about that. So two things, I think, jokes aside, my practical advice to everyone is to always, when given opportunities, and you have a range of things that you could do, pick the thing that will cause you to learn the most, especially as young people. It's the same power as compound interest. If you pick the thing that will cause you to learn the most, that is knowledge that the sooner you bank it, the platform for future lessons is higher and higher and higher. I was so lucky to be at Facebook. I changed jobs inside of our company every 18 months. This job I've had for 7 years, but before this, I changed jobs every 18 months. And so I really built a very broad base of knowledge and expertise. And some of my peers did not. They stayed in areas they were comfortable. And in areas that you were comfortable, for a little bit of time, you do better because you have greater expertise than the people around you. But at some point, you hit the ceiling of whatever that niche is. And so I had peers, friends, who got very deep, and if they were the best in their field, they did just as well as me. But if they weren't willing to put the work in to be the absolute best, they got a little ahead of me, and then now I'm the CTO. Because over time, I built a very broad base of knowledge. And so here I am, I'm a computer software. That's a computer software engineering, that's what I did. And you hear the topics I'm asked to speak on, right? So I'm learning, I'm paying attention to these things. And so I do think that is ultimately why Mark asked me to take on the role of CTO, because it's not enough to understand the technology at a very deep level if you don't understand the way that technology interfaces with people, with society, with customers. And that is just work that you do, frankly, in industry today. Though I think it sounds like you have quite an exciting partnership model here that we don't have in the US. So there may be greater opportunity actually at Politecnico.
Well, we were speaking before about the joint research platforms that as Politecnico di Milano we set out with companies, and so this was the reference that Andrew did. Time for the last question from students, please. Student there, this one.
Hi, so I have a question about, from what I am given to understand, one of the biggest problems of AI, which is the alignment problem. So how do we make sure that AI, when it makes decisions, takes into account human morality? which in itself is somehow subjective and not the same for everybody. So what strategies would you see that would make it easier for AI, not maybe to just find the most optimal solution from maybe an economical or technical standpoint, but also take into account the humanity that a human person would take into account in the reasoning, which is not given for granted when you leave the decision to AI?
Yeah, there's a tremendously rich rhetoric, which I gather you're very plugged into on the internet from Eliezer and several others around a concern that if we don't slow down the development of artificial intelligence and put very intentional guardrails on them through this process that is described as alignment, but is not a well understood technical process, then there's a concern that artificial intelligences will escape their confines on a single machine, spread themselves to multiple machines, take over power grids, preventing us from turning them off, and it's quite an elaborate scenario. As I've tried to intimate earlier, I think this is a category error. I think this is not even the kind of thing that AI is capable of today. These AIs don't even exist outside of the bounds of a query being specifically put to them. They very much exist on a closed set of machines that, in the absolute worst case scenario, could be unplugged or taken apart. I'm a huge fan of the Matrix. I understand the potential implications of this over the fullness of time, and I don't take the problem lightly because I do think over some period of time, AI alignment does become an important issue. As I said, we are investing to work on autonomous machine intelligence, and so this is a serious. So I'm just trying to create some separation here. The current large language models that we have don't. The concepts in the alignment dialogue have nothing to do with them. It's a category error. It's a different type of thing. So setting that aside, over the fullness of time, there's a very good and active and robust and well-funded debate happening on the question of alignment. I think we have quite a bit of time, more than 10 years, to continue to have that debate. I do tend to agree with Jan LeCun that there is a kind of very curious assumption built into the alignment dialogue that AIs that we've created will want to destroy humanity, or at the very least, through the paperclip problem, will casually destroy humanity on accident. For those who don't know, the paperclip problem, you ask a super intelligent artificial intelligence to make as many paperclips as possible. They exhaust all of Earth's resources and then resort to turning humans into paperclips. That's the broad strokes of it. So I find those pretty outlandish, candidly, and I think the idea that we can't take control of these artificial intelligence is very unlikely. Jan LeCun would also argue, which I think is very compelling, it's not clear, we are products of an evolutionary development. Artificial intelligences are not the product of an evolutionary development. There's no obvious reason to believe that things like self-preservation will be concepts that they have, nor any reason to believe that concepts of very highly legislated morality that we can put into them will be a problem for them to interpret and stick to. So I think there's a lot of leaps between here and then, but the good news is it is a well-discovered, well-explored, and a well-funded conversation that we do have the time to have.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. Another applause, please. Now we have the Chief of Cabinet of our Ministry of Economic Development and Made in Italy, Federico Eichberg, that will deliver the final remark, and he is online. So I ask to switch to the Federico Eichberg.
Can you see me? Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody.
We can hear you, and I guess that quite soon we will be able to see you. Here you are. That's perfect. The floor is yours, please.
Wave the hand and to greet you all. It's quite ambitious to qualify as closing remarks my intervention, because closing remarks on AI, I think, is something that nobody at this stage of human history can do. But let me first thank you, Giuliano, and thank Andrew for the inspiring words. I really regret that I cannot be there with you at the Politecnico, because at least in that informal environment I could remove my tie, which unfortunately I have to wear in this formal institutional, let's say, mise. So thank you very much for inviting us. Maybe I'll spend 1 minute on what we do, and then I'll come to Andrew's considerations and what the government is doing and what we might together try to see as future steps. So what we do at the Ministry of Enterprises and Made in Italy. So we do 4 things basically for enterprises. Number 1 is we provide incentives, we provide some fiscal advantages, we provide some also ways to remove red tape, bureaucracy, and so on and so forth. So investments. I have an idea, I want to do an investment, I come to this ministry, I find incentives, I find, let's say, an institution that accompanies me to overrun all the bureaucratic difficulties and so on and so forth. Second, we provide enterprises technologies. So it's about digital, of course. It's about telecommunication and connectivity, but it's also about new key enabling technologies. That's something we are literally shaping in these months. So creating a special Directorate General for key enabling technologies, where we want to deal with AI, of course, more in depth, with Metaverse, with quantum computing, and so on and so forth. So first we give incentives, we give sort of political priorities and subsidies to enterprises. Second, we give technologies through our ministry and through our agencies. Third, we sort of create a framework to protect enterprises from exogenous phenomena to market, like counterfeiting, like depriving of intellectual property, like state aid that could harm the market, and so on and so forth. So this is the third aspect we do. And then the fourth is we bring this from top to down. So we coordinate a group of foundations, a sort of Italian Fraunhofer, for those of you who are familiar with the German model. And then we bring it to the territories through some competence centers that we have some digital innovation hub on the territory. So this is the fourth thing to do. We take ideas from top, let's say, centers of excellencies, and we bring it to the territory. That's what we do. And I'm the chief of cabinet, and I always remind in Italian that it's written with capital G, gabinetto, because with not capital G means toilet. So I'm the chief of the cabinet and not of the toilet, because unfortunately we use the same word. Now, about the considerations that Andrew shared with us, and I really want to thank him for coming to Italy. You're always welcome in our bel paese, so hope to see you soon also in Rome whenever you can. I think Andrew touched some very important points, which will be, by the way, at the core of the Italian presidency of the G7. Next year, Italy will have the presidency of the G7. Prime Minister Meloni already mentioned that AI will be a sort of ligne rouge of all the different ministerial meetings. We, as Ministry of Enterprise and Made in Italy, particularly will be asked to focus on that. To prepare this, which means that the G7 meetings will be on AI, we will have a trilateral with Italy, France, Germany on the 30th of October in Rome, exactly to try to shape a sort of common European position among the 3 biggest economies of the Eurozone. Just to say how priority it is. Literally, 2 considerations that I want to share with you. Let's say both a little bit as a personal consideration, but also with some, let's say, ideas on how the government approaches it. Whatever calls us to a new frontier, I think is good. Okay, so I'm really eager to explore as much as possible as a person, as a father, and for my children, and as an institution to explore new frontiers. Why? Because I'm not one of those who believe that the good old years are past. And no, in the good old years, children when sold on the road, torture was admitted, death penalty was admitted. That's not the good old years. I believe that we are building a better world, and I want to contribute to build a better world. And I think AI can build a better world, okay? As a state official, I think that one of our duties is to protect the weak and the weakest. So what I have to do is, whenever I have a phenomenon, whenever I have a hammer, as Andrew used in his metaphor, I want to find a way that the hammer doesn't harm or doesn't threat someone, but helps putting the nails on the wall, for example. So how can I do that? Usually, people think that there are 3 threats that come from AI. One is unemployment. But I think Andrew was very clear in saying, look, 6 years ago, 60%. I don't know if I'm confusing the 60, but more or less 60% of the jobs that were at that time, let's say, in the portfolio, in the potential jobs, were not invented. I mean, so those we are doing now were not there at all 6 years ago. So I'm really not one of these people, members of the club of AI means unemployment. No, I don't think so. But of course, I think we have to accompany the process in such a way that it doesn't generate unemployment. But this is my daily battle that I do on automotive, that I do on any mechanics, we know that the twin transitions will have a potential impact on employment. What we have to do is to try and harmonize, for example, on the green transition, ecology and economy. I mean, we cannot forget one or the other. So it's always a matter of trying to have a soft impact on unemployment, but I'm sure that AI is also there to generate a lot of new jobs. Okay, as simple as that. Second, the potential of profiling that AI has. I personally don't think this is a threat. I think that each one of us is profiled whatever he or she does daily, and I don't really see that big problem as long as we know that data are used. I mean, in specific for specific purposes and based on a consensus given by the person. I mean, that's not a threat. The third one is, let's say, transparency, the use of algorithm, and the potential for big techs. Okay, I mean, let's put it very frankly and very transparently. Is this a problem? Potentially, yes. To be very frank, potentially, yes. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's work on it. I mean, governments are there, academies there, experts are there. Whoever is there can contribute on this debate. But I don't think that's a red line. I mean, I don't think that means that AI will never work. I think we have to try and do our best to comply with that. Let me add one final point. I don't want to bore you too much. I think the issue that was mentioned in the last question is a very important one on morals. I am one of those who believe that there are some absolute truths. A is not non-A. And I'm not here to say that. Aristotle said it 2,200 years ago, 300 years ago. So the non-contradiction principle, not killing the innocent, is a universal principle of natural law. And again, it's not me to say that. Natural law goes back to Cicero here. So I think there are some main principles. Then one can say that person is innocent or not innocent based on discretional judgments. But there are some principles of truth and good. That's why I think that if AI will not be able, and that's really very much a philosophical thought that I'm sharing with you as basis for work, if AI will never develop that, and I mean, it's understandable. What we have to do is maybe to inform the consumer of a notion given by AI based on the fact that these kind of principles are not there in the elaboration of the AI. And I think it's fair. I mean, but we just have to make it clear that the text that is provided is the fruit of an elaboration made by an important tool that doesn't have those principles of truth and of just, which I think are universal, not based on Federico Eichberg's thought, which wouldn't be relevant, but based on 2,500 years of philosophy and more. I think I'll stop here. Sorry to bore you, but these are the considerations, both institutional and personal, but I'm available both for questions now and for additional moments of reflection together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much because, Mr. Eichberg, because of course the interaction between AI, immersive technologies, and the future competitiveness of Made in Italy will represent a crucial challenge for the competitiveness of our industrial system. Well, so thank you. Andrew, please stand up. So, I mean, I guess that some students, or let me say, all the students here would like to understand you. I mean, you are relatively a successful man. You and Mark, you did quite good job, yeah? So I guess that most of our guys are dreaming for a wonderful future for them. So I guess that a couple of suggestions from you would be very welcome from our students. So please, let's conclude with some suggestion from you for their future hopes and dreams.
Well, thank you. I'd be delighted, of course. You could not have picked a more exciting time to be where you are. The technological change that we're contemplating here in the room today is of a magnitude that arguably hasn't happened in our field since the 1960s and 1970s. Stanford Research Institute, Xerox PARC, and Apple, like the pioneering creators of all the technology that we're using in our pockets, on our desks at home. These paradigms were created over a 23-year period of time, 65 to 75 years ago. And so people can go an entire successful, fruitful career without having the opportunity to get at the fundamentals, which you all have. Our chief scientist, Michael Abrash, himself a legend in his own time, one of the pioneers of computer graphics, he has a great saying, which I will leave you with, which is that these are the good old days. It doesn't feel like it now, but at some point in the future, you will look back on this time as having been a tremendously open period where everything is possible, and it genuinely is. We do not know the direction this technology will go because this technology doesn't go on its own. It will go where you take it. There is a concept that you must fight, this concept of technological eventualism, the idea that technology will just eventually happen whether you do something or not, and that is not how it works. It only appears when someone decides to cause it to appear. There's no reason that can't be you. And in fact, if it's not you, it probably will happen later and with somebody else's vision. So I do encourage you all to seize the moment, seize the opportunity. I think you have much clearer vision of the opportunity ahead of you than I had at your age. I was lucky I found a path through to get here, but it is laid out in front of all of you, and that is just something that not every generation of students will get to have. And so, I think if you embrace, as you can tell with me, if you enthusiastically embrace that, understand that you will fail, you won't know the answer, but that is a fruitful effort, that you participate in something that is great, that is grand, that is bigger than yourself. You will find yourself not only successful in having attempted something worth attempting, but also very gratified in having done so.
So thank you very much. Thank you. I think that very much appreciated your. Thank you very much indeed.
I hope to come and see you in California.
Bring us out. Get you some demos. Bye, everybody.